every fifth Tuesday. Whenever there's a fifth Tuesday in a month, there will be an evening meeting, and we will certainly get the word out. Today's date's Tuesday, April 30th. Today's invocation will be given by Pastor Roderick Blewett of Southeast Texas New Horizons Church. And everyone, if you would, please silence your phone. And if you so choose, stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're praying, not pledging.
Yes, sir.
Let us pray. Father, we just thank you tonight for the opportunity, Lord, to be alive. We thank you for the privilege of prayer tonight. Father, it's not just in any country that we can stand in a place of public gathering, Lord, and pray, and we thank you tonight for that liberty. And Father, we look to you tonight, Lord. Your word says that we would pray for men everywhere, for kings, rulers, those who are in authority over us, Lord, that we may be able to live peaceably amongst ourselves. And Father, tonight as we come, Lord, we lift up this body of leadership. We lift up this city before you today. Father, there are many problems and problems with perplexity that only you have the answer for. God, may we be yielded leaders, Father. God, we are people of influence, Lord. As we speak through microphones, as Hitler spoke, we can influence the minds and hearts of people. Help us to take the gravity that comes with these positions, Lord. Everything that's facing our city, the crime, our education, Lord, the peace that we need amongst races. Father, we're praying now, God, that as we go forward, that you would just give wisdom and direction to this body, Lord. God, you said, let the mind of Christ be in us. And Father, we have to give you room in our city, room in this corridor today. And I pray that all be done well in decency and in order. You said two have to walk together in agreement. And Father, we're believing today that the business tonight and the business in the future, and God, that you would just give us the mind as we go forth in all things. Bless businesses, our police officers, those that respond in every way. We thank you tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. To the flag of the United States of America. Liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor West.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner, absent. Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel.
Here.
And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, today we have 3 proclamations and 1 presentation. In lieu of reading the proclamations, we will yield the time to allow them to come up and speak about their organizations and or the event that's occurring. As always, you and whoever is with you is invited to come up and shake hands with the council, and then we'll take a photograph. The first proclamation, we are recognizing the Pear Orchard Cemetery as an official historic landmark. Accepting will be Mrs. Jessie Davis and Miss Kate Hambright. Are they present? All right, please come on up.
Oh, we have to shake their hands? Oh, right here? Okay. Oh, right there, okay.
Yeah, we'll get a group picture.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah. That last guy used to work in code enforcement.
Yeah, you're good. Alrighty, y'all, we're gonna get a group picture. Let's see if I can get you guys to scoot in just a little bit this way. Here we are. All right, y'all can look right here. And 1, 2, and 3. Excellent, thank you.
Do I say something? Do I supposed to say something? No? Okay, they said my name already, Jesse Davis. I work for the Ben Rogers Visitor Center here in Beaumont under the director of Kathy Hughes is my boss. Wow, I'm just kind of overwhelmed with everything. I thank you, Mayor West, for the proclamation and the council. And I also want to thank Kate Hambright with the with the Jefferson County Historical Commission. She was the one that helped me spearhead this and to get this going. A little background, I do genealogy. I love genealogy, and I was looking for my great-grandfather, and he's supposed to have been buried in the Pear Orchard Cemetery. So I went there to find his body, and of course, not his body, but his, his grave site. And our family was poor, so he didn't have a headstone. But they said he was there. And so as I was there, I was looking around in the cemetery, and I found World War I, World War II, and Korean veterans in that cemetery. And it overwhelmed me when I saw it, and I called the Jefferson County Historical Commission, which I did sit on that board once before, so I knew about it. And they said, well, is the cemetery 50 years old? I said, yeah, I think so. And so we got the process going and got the application going, and Kate jumped on board with me, and it took me a year to finish it, but I got it done. And we are so excited. First, I want to also thank the Blanchett and the Hebert family, because they were the pioneering family for the Pear Orchard at that time in the late 1800s. They came in and settled, and they, thank God, they were able to get land, because it was very difficult for Black people to have land at that time and to bury their people. And so I'm so thankful that we have our Black cemeteries here, and to keep them make them historic, and so they could be protected. Because I'm doing a lot of research right now, and a lot of Black cemeteries are endangered right now. They're endangered. They're being overgrown. They're not being taken care of. The city is building on top of graves. In a lot of places, I'm not saying in our town, but in a lot of places, the research I've done. So to put a historical marker on a cemetery is big, because it protects that cemetery from being taken over by the government or whoever, a private entity, whoever. So I'm so grateful for the team, for all the people that financially gave. There's a lot of people that gave. It's $950 for the marker to be purchased. And Miss Dora Nisby was a pioneer for me with that, getting the money that I need, rallying the people around me to give me the money. All my friends, my mother is here, my father's here, my brother is here, and I'm so grateful for the proclamation. I have about 4 more cemeteries that I'm going to be working on, so you'll see me again, because we want to preserve those Black cemeteries. And also, we need help with keeping them clean, keeping them from being overgrown, and some of the headstones are in the ground. So it's a lot of things that we need done for our Black cemeteries. I want to give thanks to also our commissioner, Bo Alfred, that several years ago that he did clean out some cemeteries in our city. So I want to acknowledge him for that. So thank you so much for the proclamation. Oh, okay. Ms. Nisby wanted me to say, if anyone wants to make a donation to me, I'm just kind of a grassroots kind of person. I don't have a name or anything like that, a 501(c), but I am working with the Historical Commission.
Make the check out to you.
Oh. Okay, she said make the check out to me, Jesse Davis. Thank y'all.
Next, we have a proclamation recognizing the month of May as Older Americans Month. Accepting will be Jancy Kimball, Stacy Olson, and Colin Moore. Oh, there's Charlie. All right, Charlie, Terry, y'all come on up. Here you go.
We do.
All right. Got a proclamation for you here.
All righty, y'all. Look right here. 1, 2, and 3. All right, you're good.
We actually do have something to say. We did know about it. We were just messing with you.
So we're co-chairing a event on Thursday, the 2nd of May. It's a hot mic. For the Deliver the Difference. And the purpose of this fundraiser, luckily we're sold out and thankful to God for that. We've been doing this event for several years. The money that we're raising for the event, Deliver the Difference at the event center on Thursday, is to allow us to be able to not have a waiting list for our Meals on Wheels recipients in Hardin and Jefferson counties, which is where the Meals on Wheels in this district serves. So thank you so much for supporting us and supporting seniors. We're honoring this year Cindy and Michael Lindsay on Thursday. So if you guys can come out, we'd love to have anyone.
If you got a ticket already, since it's sold out, but I figure many of you will be there. So we look forward to seeing all of you there on Thursday.
So thank you for your support.
Thank y'all. And now we have a proclamation recognizing April as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month. You're right. I just making sure y'all are paying attention. And it says accepting will be Mrs. Robin Troy, but is she, there you are. Okay, I didn't see you. But if y'all would come on up and see Robin.
Just a second, and then you come back here.
Okay.
And speak. Yeah, right, front and center. All righty, y'all. Let's see. Let me get right here. All right, y'all look right here in 1, 2, 3. Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Let's see.
Go ahead.
Well, so we want to thank you as a representative from Cowboy Harley Davidson and Cowboy Power Sports. We appreciate you allowing us to bring the awareness that's needed for safety for our motorcyclists, as well as everybody else. We all need to be safe on the roads. And I don't know if y'all know this, but you guys have 2 bikers on the council. You want to guess? Feldshaw? Who else?
It's a race.
Odwin. Yes. And then,
1956, it don't even run.
I guess.
oh, Mike, do you ride a motorcycle? What kind? That's all right. That's all right. No, Cowboy Power Sports sells Hondas. We're good with that. But I'm going to let our Cowboy Hog Chapter Director, JW, say a few words, and thank you all.
Thank you, Robin. Thank y'all for taking y'all's time to recognize motorcycle safety and how important it is. Every one of us in here knows someone that owns a motorcycle, I would think. May is set aside to recognize motorcycle safety awareness. Look twice, save a life. I'm the president of the 500 for Life. It's a 501c3 organization. It was started by Van Jordan and myself, along with a few others, back in 22, after a string of motorcyclists had got killed. You know, it's awful disappointing that one of us gets killed, and the out is, I just didn't see them. We try to impress, look twice, save a life. Stay off the cell phones. We're human. We got families, kids, grandkids. We got businesses. We're all in the environment. The 500 for Life, we had a ride. This is going to be our 3rd annual this Saturday. I encourage y'all to come on out. It's an open invitation to each one of y'all. We're going to make a ride starting at 10:30 from Power Sports. Kickstands up at 10:30. We're going to go through Beaumont. We're then to Lumberton, Beaumont, Mauricefield, back to Vidor, and back over to Beaumont. It's going to be a good ride. We should be back by the dealership by 12:30. We're going to ask several people to speak, have prayer, get to know the people in that community who rides in motorcycles. Y'all all fit in. Y'all all there. Come be a part of our family. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Folks, I want to thank y'all for your time, especially you folks in the audience too. These things, great help. It will not work if you pull out in front of us or turn in front of us. That's for bumping your head. I ask, the motto is, look twice, save a life. Let's go just a little bit deeper. If you hold up your thumb, I can just about hide each one of you behind my thumb. The folks that have the cute little stuff hanging in their mirror, you can hide cars, trucks, 18-wheelers, and motorcycles behind that. I would ask one thing. If you see a motorcycle coming, you think, I think I can beat him. I think I can make it across there. I'm in a hurry. Wait 3 seconds. What you'll find is 1, 2, vroom, 3. See, that's all we ask. Give us 3 seconds. Our lives are worth it. We got kids, grandkids, and our lives are riding on it. God bless y'all.
And now we have a City of Beaumont communications update.
Good evening. We're excited to be back with the announcements for the week of April 30th and are excited to have you all here with us tonight. If you're a business owner or a meeting or event planner, we want to hear how your organization would potentially use the proposed downtown convention center hotel. Please share your thoughts on our survey at beaumonttexas.gov/Garfield-hotel-survey. Parents, summer camp signups are here. Join Beaumont Recreation for games, crafts, field trips, and Sun in the Fun this summer. Ages 5 through 12 are welcome with 2 sessions offered in June and July. Registration is still open until full, and you can sign up in person at the Sterling Pruitt Activity Center. Registration is also open for Beaumont Rec's Youth Summer Track program with practices May through August at Westbrook High School. You can sign up or learn more also at the Sterling Pruitt Activity Center through May 6th. The City of Beaumont and 409 Swim have partnered to bring the children of our community a new experience, a summer swim team for ages 5 through 19. This is not lessons, but a competitive team with practices Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings at Alice Keith Pool. You can register now through May 18th for the season, which runs May through July, with a mandatory tryout on May 6th. For more information, contact Raymond Ford at 409-960-1979 or coachrford@yahoo.com. If you want to get a jump on fall, registration is also open for Beaumont Recreation's Youth Co-ed Flag Football League. Sign up by June 2nd for the season, which runs September 7th through October 19th for boys and girls ages 7 through 14. Volunteer coaches and refs are also needed, and you can contact the Sterling Pruitt Center for more information or register at teamsideline.com/Beaumont. We still need volunteers to join us this Saturday for the city's biannual community cleanup. Please bring your friends and family out for a day of community engagement. We'll meet at 8 a.m. at Sprott Park to keep Texas beautiful together. And summer movies in the park are back with Beaumont Rec. The schedule is now out on our website, and we invite you to pack a blanket and picnic and join us at a park near you this summer, the first one being Wuthering Heights on May 17th. You can also support Earth Day in another way. Did you know we have a voluntary beautification fund that supports initiatives like tree planting, public art, and the cleanup efforts? Call our water utilities department to have a voluntary $2 added to your monthly utility bill. We also invite you to celebrate World Migration Day at the Terrell Park Nature Center. Did you know Beaumont is on 2 of the 4 migratory flyways in the U.S. and sees more than 250 species annually? And during migration, that balloons to over 350. Wow, you can learn all about our feathered friends and the phenomenon of migration as part of the free Kids Nature's Explorer program on Saturday, May 11th from 10 to 1. Call the center for more information. And you've seen her around, and her presence has already been felt, but we want to officially welcome Ms. Tracy Kennick to the City of Beaumont in her new role as Communications Senior PR Manager and PIO, who will be handling our media relations and helping us better get our information out to the community. Please say hi if you see her around and give her a warm city welcome. And we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and remind you there's also a BISD joint meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. at the Event Center, which is also open to the public. So we hope to see everyone there also. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, for those that are here for the proclamations or presentation and you'd like to leave, now's the time to do so, and we thank you for coming. Now's the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comments on the consent agenda or regular agenda items 1 through 9, or any other topics. Items 10 and 11 have already been heard in public hearings, and therefore citizens cannot speak on those items. The city clerk will call your names when it's your time to speak. When you approach the podium, please say your name, address, city, and state. You will have 3 minutes for public comments. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. And I do like to remind people that myself or the council cannot respond whenever you're making comments at this time. However, somebody from the city will get with you if you can wait around just a minute, and we will follow up with you.
You ready?
I am now.
Okay. Raymond Ford.
Good evening. Name is Raymond Ford. Address is 4890 Bray Street, Beaumont, Texas, 77708 is my zip code. I'm not gonna be here before you long. I just wanted to come tonight to thank you all personally. Many of you have been involved in my swimming lessons that I started 5 years ago, my residence. I had to come before I think the Parks Committee, and then you all voted on it and passed it as well last year. I had no idea 5, 6, 7 years ago that I'd be where I'm at now. So swimming lessons has turned into, as you all seen, it was advertised up there, it's turned into a swim team. I have to thank Mr. Turner, Councilman Turner personally. He was the first one that kind of jumped on board and got the train rolling for me. City Manager Williams, Councilman Durio, City Attorney Reed. I've even had some Facebook support from Mr. Getz, and I think there was one more, Mr. Neal. Thank you all. This is something, like I said, I never would have thought. I'm just trying to bring something different to the kids. I have 7 of my own, 2 actually participating on this team. The outpouring from the community has been overwhelming. I already have 89 kids that have tentatively signed up to show up to tryouts Monday. So pending weather, that's where we'll be. Like I said, I just want to thank you all again for the opportunity to use Alice Keith Park to bring something, not something that's new, because it's already a swim team in Beaumont. I want to make sure I say that, but something else additional to the community. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Albert Harrison.
Albert Harrison, 1240 Ashley, Beaumont, Texas. Mayor, City Council member, other city employees, and concerned citizens. I wish to issue a challenge to each City Council member, a debate on transparency. Now, you can contact me, the City Secretary has my number. Contact me if you wish to have that particular challenge. The other issue I wish to bring up is that I cannot understand as to why and how I'm getting a $20.02 charge, saying that the city neglected or did not issue the charge on June. Now, my concern is, and this goes back to transparency again, are you all trying to collect that $20.02 from individuals that do not have a water bill or doesn't have water anymore? It seems to me that you only are able to collect it from individuals that has a current water bill. Now, I'm not understanding as to how. Number one, it seems as if you all are able to increase salaries, but yet it's still you able to charge the little man a $20.02 charge, saying you forgot to charge that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ben Johnson.
Good evening. I'm Ben Johnson, president of the Golden Triangle Cowboys, a nonprofit youth organization. We supply football, basketball, and cheerleading to the inner city kids, used to say. We also partner with Beaumont Housing that pays for our kids to play for free. They're receiving, if the parents are receiving any Beaumont Housing funding. I'm coming just with concerns of Sprout Park football field. I reached out to parks, I reached out to recreations, I reached out to the mayor itself, just for any updates. 2 years ago, or about a year ago, year and a half ago, they ripped up the field that we practice on, that I have over 120 kids at least 6 months out the year utilizing, and I'm not having any updates on how far the progression is with that field. Right now, I'm a nonprofit organization. A lot of our funding comes from donations or my pockets or my board members' pockets to make it happen. And we're paying a lot of money to BISD just to utilize their fields to play football and to give back into our community. So I'm coming, I know you can't answer questions now, but it's just a question of how that field is going to be utilized. When I talk to Parks, they're saying that at first there was a free first come, first serve field. Once you put the turf down, that might change. But my concern is you're going to push out 150 kids from that same community that's been utilizing it for over 2 years, going on 3 years now. So that was my concerns on it. Right now, the grass is growing back. They did the dirt work. They put asphalt down, and this grass patch is growing back because it's just not no work being done to that field. So now I'm in a situation of we're having to go back out and find a new field this year and pay more money, additional money for fields, additional money for insurance, just for those kids to play. So we just looking for some type of answers. So I came today to voice my concerns on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Jerome Alexander.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing? Jerome Alexander, 1118 Neverland Street, Beaumont, Texas, 77701. I come here today, basically, same situation with Coach Bean. If y'all remember the city council, y'all helped us build the Golden Triangle Cowboys with y'all donation. And when we first came, the mayor of Mouton came, we was talking to, we told her we need some help to help us with the field we was practicing on. So she got some people from the Dallas Cowboys organization to donate the turf down here for us to be laid on the field. So it went through Mr. Williams here supposed to have laid the turf for us last year. Y'all got the money. Y'all say y'all had the program for it to be laid, okay? We don't understand why it ain't been laid, because you can't say it was the weather because it didn't even rain last year. And we trying to find out if you're going to try to take the field from you. You took the Salvation Army. You let the man take the Salvation Army from us, where the kid would practice from there, which was donated. The mayor Mouton had that field donated to us. And then Captain Hagan had come, he took the field. And about a week ago, they let some grown people use the field because they gave them money, the money that we didn't have to pay them for the field. So now you got us, like you say, trying to go here and here, and we don't have the money, so we have to ask for donations to get the money for the field. And the kids we need somewhere to practice. So, Mr. Williams, we trying to find out how long it's going to take you and your team to finish the field for us to play on. We appreciate you give us an answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Johnson. You can keep that. I'm good. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, Council, William Johnson, 1045 Madison Avenue, Beaumont, Texas. My complaint is against Chase Bank on Phelan and College. It seems as though I keep on coming up with misses out of my money. A while back, I was getting ripped off at the bank from my credit card. Other people was using it more than I. This past the 2nd and the 6th of this year, I went to my bank like I usually do, what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. First of the month, I go there and try to do my bills. I went there on the 2nd and the 6th and found out that my bank account was ripped wide open. Wasn't nothing there for me to pay my bills. I talked to the bank president about it, and she told me I had to go to the police department. I mean, she really got hostile about it when I asked her about I should be on film if it happened. Then she called her the guards over. But anyway, I'm here today because I had a check for $700 taken out of my account on the 1st and the 25th, and I had another one taken out of my account on the 1st and the 30th. I went to my bank about it, and she gave me the number to go to the police department. I did that too. Went to the police department, and I got this number. I called it repeatedly from the 6th, from the 2nd and the 6th up until the 3rd and the 7th. And I went and got another number, and I started calling it. And I still didn't get no reply. A couple of weeks ago, I came before you all, and one of the officer at the door stopped me when I was going out, and he made a call across town, and I got a number, and I got this from the police department. On the 4th and the 1st. I put it back in the mail on the 4th and the 3rd. I haven't heard nothing from the bank. I got my bank statement, and they ain't did nothing about it. So I'm still right here today, still seeking $1,600 was taken out of my account. I don't know where to go, but keep on coming up here asking you all about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Addie Allen.
Good afternoon, City Manager, Mayor, City Councilman, officials. I was here last council meeting, explained that I had someone that jumped my 6-foot fence. I went and filled out an Open Records Act form, and still I have not gotten a narrative of what happened. And when the police officer came, he spoke to someone else that was in my driveway with his big truck and didn't speak to me. I did let him know I was the 911 caller. At this point, I know when you have a car accident, you get a narrative. Now, I got a call from the police department records. They stated that they couldn't give me an account, but they could send it to the Attorney General, Ken Paxton. And I don't understand that because I haven't seen the narrative, so I don't know how the Attorney General could make within 6 to 8 weeks an account of what occurred here in Beaumont. So transparency, I know, Mayor, before you became mayor, you said you wanted to see transparency. I've talked to Internal Affairs, haven't heard back from them. I called Chief Singletary, left a message. This happened March 18th. That's too long. And the reason I know somebody jumped my fence because neighbors saw him and called me. So I see that there's gates over at the police department and they carry guns, they carry tasers, they carry billy sticks, they have armor. My armor is a 6-foot fence with a padlock. So where's the parity? And I have an affidavit for trespassing. So this officer did not even recognize that. Transparency. Thank you that we're getting a sidewalk, and I'm wondering when the commencement date will begin over on Fournette Road. But transparency, even with the water bill, I got a note that said the City of Beaumont, so I'm glad Ms. Kennicks is here so somebody can be accountable when something is sent out to citizens. Because the City of Beaumont does not write letters. Somebody at the City of Beaumont does. So I appreciate everything you do, but Mr. City Manager, Ms. City Attorney, I haven't heard from either one of you. And I'd like to have somebody to talk to me and tell me what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda? There is a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Councilman Turner?
Mr. Manager, city staff, item E, Can someone kind of explain, how it came about and how does this process work?
From police? So it's a police item. I can just tell you that the city does do consent tows for accidents, wrecks, whenever the car can't be driven out. The individual does have the option to call a personal tow truck company, but if they don't have one, we have a list, and I'll just let him kind of step in whenever you want to. But this is just to ensure that we regulate the fees so that we can protect our citizens against astronomical penalty fees. But go ahead,
So
Chief.
is it kind of like wrecks if it's on the freeway or regular wrecks in the neighborhood? Like,
So this is specifically for the no insurance tow. So if we stop someone and they don't have financial responsibility, that's when this contract comes into effect. So it went through the purchasing process. It was bid. We got the bids back. The bids were evaluated and scored, and that's how we came up with the winning proposal.
okay, thank you. A Citizen X, and I just wanted to make sure I can get it properly explained because I didn't want to give them inaccurate information, so thank you.
Yes, sir. So this is, pretty sure this is exclusively the no insurance towing. So our no preference tow is a completely different contract.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Getz?
Just to follow up on that, so somebody makes a traffic violation, they get stopped, they don't have insurance. Police officer doesn't say, well, y'all go ahead and drive, y'all stop them and they get their car towed. Is that how that works?
Not all the time. It can work that way. We can, the officer has the discretion of seeing if they can get someone that they want to come tow it. They can get it out of the roadway. It all depends on the time constraints, the traffic, the conditions at the time. But the short answer is we can tow the vehicle under this contract if they don't have.
What I'm trying to get is the moral of the story is make sure you have liability insurance.
Yes, sir, because if we stop them and then they go around the corner and they have a wreck, then that could be a problem.
Thank you.
Councilman Durio?
Yes,
Are
sir.
y'all able to check and see if they have insurance, if they don't have their insurance ID card?
Yes, sir.
You can look it up?
Yes, sir. It comes back with the registration when we run the registration.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
In most cases. Sometimes it will come back as unconfirmed, but in most cases, it will come back as either insurance confirmed or no insurance.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we please have the reading of item number 1?
Thank you, Mayor. Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute final change order number 2 to the contract with Gulf Coast, a CRH Company for the street preservation citywide Phase 1 project. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 1?
Move to approve. Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 1. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 2, please?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to approve change order number 2 for the second phase of the 2020 HSIP Interconnect Signals Project, Calder Avenue, East Lucas Drive, and Washington Blvd. And it comes with a recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 2? Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 2. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councilman Turner, then Councilman Durio.
Mr. Manager, the interchange project, can you the Interconnect Signal Project, can someone kind of explain, is this lights connecting or, exactly what does it consist of?
Yes, sir. This is what we call the adaptive signaling project. What will happen once it's installed is that the signalized intersections will communicate with each other along the installed corridor and can adjust the timing on those signals to improve traffic flow based on traffic conditions. So it has cameras at the intersection that look close at the stop bar like our normal cameras have in the past. They also have cameras that look further away from the intersection to count the traffic that's coming so it can assess how heavy that is and make adjustments.
Okay, appreciate you, Bart, because I've had citizens ask about the flow of traffic, you know, consistently stopping when the light is green. Can it be a smooth flow? Of course, you can't ideally say yes, but this would help address that flow, correct?
The key thing, though, is they need to be driving the speed limit.
Okay,
Programmed for cars driving the speed limit down the road. So if you're speeding, it's not going to be effective at keeping you from those red lights. So
okay, I'll make sure I tell people
some
that.
incentive to go the posted speed limit.
And have liability insurance.
Have liability insurance.
Councilman Durio, then Councilman Getz.
Bart, is this gonna be done on 4th Street also?
Yes, sir. This is phase 2. 4th Street was part of phase 1. So we've been pretty successful in applying for funding under this Highway Safety Improvement Program. And so this is the second batch of money. But 4th is already installed. Now that the pavement markings are down, the vendor will be configuring those or programming those intersections so that it's up and running.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't College Street supposed to have this already?
It does. That was our initial install quite a few years ago. It's an older system. We have had a few issues with it lately, but when we put it in, we did do a study. It had improved traffic flow 37% from beginning to after install. But there have been some issues with cameras that have popped up that we've had to address.
So we can be looking at that again, because I can tell you that's my preferred route to come to City Hall from my house. And for some reason, the later I am, the more red lights I hit.
Right. Our big hang up on that is we can't use this program for where those signals are because this is for off system, so not a TxDOT road. Unfortunately, to College, until you get to I-10 is a TxDOT road.
Okay, we'll talk to TxDOT, I guess.
Lastly, Bart, thank you, because my wife is guilty too of the stops on Washington. So I will explain to her, if you're going the speed limit, you won't run into all those red lights. So
Look, Councilman.
Let it go, brother.
All right. If there's no other discussions, all in favor of approving item number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we please have the reading of item number 3, please?
Consider a resolution authorizing a contract for property insurance coverage for various city-owned buildings and assets. And that comes with a recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
So move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval for item number 3. Is there any discussion? Councilman Durio?
So I've been told more than once that the city was self-insured. So are they no longer self-insured, or is this something different?
So council voted to go into the risk pool.
Sure did.
And so
That's what this is?
So this is risk pool, but I have our liability administrator here, Marissa Arsenault, that she can fully answer those questions for you.
So this is partially risk pool, but it's different than what you're thinking. So this is for our buildings. The thing that was done previously was for other lines of liability.
Okay. So,
And so just for transparency, the city has always covered additional insurance on our buildings. And so that's separate.
so when we in any time, like we may have to file a claim, where does the deductible come from? Where do we pay, what fund do we pay that out of?
It depends on the claim. So if it's one for our buildings, I'm honestly not sure. I think that's always been paid by finance. But if it's out of like our law enforcement liability or our property damage, as far as us damaging someone else's property with our vehicles, that's paid out of a budget from the city attorney's office.
We have a general liability fund line item as a part of my department to pay those claims. So the claims that y'all see all the time in council, that comes from us. But our larger property claims from hurricane damage are usually handled by finance. Those are larger claims. If you recall, we had damage to our roof at the police station and I believe at the art museum. Those were larger insurance claims that we either have the option to pay out of pocket straight out or file a claim for it, depending on the amount of the deductible. And those are usually brought to council as well. But there is a line item for repairs and expenses.
What kind of claims do we send to the risk pool?
So
Could you explain for them what exactly that is?
Yeah, so right now, we retain the ability to settle claims under, I believe, $10,000. And so we settle those claims in-house through council. Anything in excess of that, depending on the cuts of it, we can either file a claim or discuss it with council to just pay it out of pocket. But traditionally, most of the stuff that we would have litigated in-house, we are now doing it through a traditional insurance company.
That's the one we voted on to go through TML?
Yes, sir.
And so TML is on here as well because they also offer property insurance. So we would have all our lines of liability except for wind and health through them. And then they're working with a separate broker for our wind and health, and and so they're also included on this memo.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I might add, if I misspeak, Marissa, let me know, but this shows that we've achieved about a $641,000 savings of our premium for last year for this same insurance coverage.
Actually, for more coverage,
For
sorry.
more-
So
Yes.
last
coverage.
year, we were only able to obtain $50 million in coverage. This year, through TML, for everything except for flood, and there's a specific breakdown, but for the most part, just know that we were able to obtain a lot more. So our total insured value is $334 million. And so we were able to obtain property coverage for your standard fire hazards, that kind of thing, for that total amount. And then for flood, TML also includes $5 million of flood insurance, and then they also include, separate breakdowns that we generally in the past have paid a lot more for.
And our deductibles under these claims are lower as well. They're comparable, but lower than what we were paying
Yes.
previously.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, all in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 4, please?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider a resolution approving the repair of a pump for Lawson's Pump Station. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 4, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 5, please?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept maintenance and authorize final payment to MK Constructors for the Jefferson Street Infrastructure Repair Project. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 5?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 5. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 6, please?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to award a contract to TRP Construction Group, LLC of Haltom City, Texas, for the citywide pavement markings Phase 3 project. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 6?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 6. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 7, please?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1 to the contract with Grant McKay for the demolition of 2 structures at the AT&T building. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 7?
Move to approve.
There is a motion and a second for approval for item number 7. Is there any discussion? Councilman Durio, then Councilman Getz.
Yeah, I noticed it says for 2 structures. Is this like some side structures that's not the AT&T building, or what is it?
The asbestos, we found some asbestos on the outside of the building.
Oh, okay.
As they were tearing it down and they unearthed the concrete slab, there was a mastic.
Jamie, I'm sorry, can you talk in the?
I'm sorry. So as they were unearthing it and pulling the dirt back, there's a mastic on the side, and it's asbestos.
A mastic?
Yes, sir, it's a waterproofing mastic that they put on the cement for the basement,
Oh, okay.
so the basement doesn't leak.
Councilman Getz.
So I have a question. We were given a sheet of figures in which it's told how much money is left to pay for some of these projects that we previously approved, 555 Main Street being one of them. And it says in the 24 budget, $1.1 million was budgeted, that we spent $220,748 to date in 24. And that would leave $878,291 that is still needed according to that. But this says that to finish the demolition, you're asking for a change order to make the total amount $774,000. The numbers don't seem to be adding up. What am I missing here?
Sir, I gave you those numbers. That is in case there's any other change orders, anything else that comes up, between now and the time that we make the final payment.
Okay, so we've allocated 1.1 for just the demolition portion of
Yes, sir.
the building?
Yes, sir. That's what we thought that those bids would come in at. Fortunately, they came in lower than
But
that.
less?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
By saying, all those in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 8?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to award a contract to East Tex Utility Construction, LLC of Beaumont for the Union Pacific Railroad Ditch Maintenance, Washington Blvd to Virginia Street project. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 8?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 8. Is there any discussion? Councilman Turner, then Councilman Neal, then Councilman Duria.
For clarity, are we responsible for the ditches or the railroad? I'm thinking it's 50 feet from the rail, because it was discussion in the neighborhood association, not this particular area, but in the north end on Helbig. It's 50 feet from the rail, but we were responsible for the additional between the street and the rail. Is that accurate or no? I said I would ask.
Well, the right of way that the rail has varies by railway. So I think the widest I'm aware of in town is 100 feet, but a lot of them are 50 feet. So it just varies depending on where you're at. And they're responsible for everything within that right of way. Now, that being said, in areas we'll mow do things of that nature. The reason you're seeing this item for the ditch that runs along that rail is, unfortunately, if you go back in time, the way a lot of the city's drainage was constructed is they took advantage of the ditches that ran down those railways. And so neighborhoods, ditches empty into the ditch that goes down the railway right away. And unfortunately, in today's day and time, they really don't maintain those ditches on the sides of their rail. They're not that worried about them. So, but we are, because the neighborhood depends on it for the drainage. So that's why we've worked with the railroad to obtain permits and permission to go in and improve the ditch along their rail so that we improve our drainage.
Is it possible that the railroad would even give funding towards this since it's actually their property?
No.
Maybe we need to meet with them again.
If you can make that happen, God bless you. That would be great. But generally, we're paying them for the permits to be able to go in there and do the work. Now, I would like in the long term to try to get our drainage off of the ditches that run down those rails, but that's going to be a long-term project that involves a lot of money to reverse grade the drainage to another direction.
All right, Mr. Williams, I know they'll come before us to discuss something soon. I think that's something that should be brought to the forefront when we're talking about exchanges in the future.
And we'll be glad to talk with them about it.
Thank you.
Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Mayor. Bart, I'm assuming our engineer's estimate was just a guess. Is that correct?
Well, it was an educated guess. The problem is no one wants to really work inside the railroad right away. So that's what you're seeing here from our understanding, is that we're paying a premium for them to put up with the pain of operating inside that right away.
Thank you.
Councilman Durio?
So Bart, so you're telling me we're paying the railroad for us to go in and cut their ditches?
Yes, sir.
You know, because I had, in that area, in that spot, there's a man that lives there, and he's been trying to get the railroad to cut it for years, and they just refused to, and they basically said, we don't have to. Well, we don't follow your ordinances. And I think it's something that we need to address or work out something, because the lady told, and her excuse was she had 32,000 miles of track. And the man, like, I'm just worried about the 100 feet behind my house. But she said, if we get a chance, we might cut it. And that's just not being a good neighbor.
Right.
And hopefully, because since I've been on council, I've had some bad instances with the railroads, the different railroads, like how long it took to get the red light started back at Washington and 11th Street. You know, that was another railroad deal.
In their defense, the Federal Railroad Administration changed the rules on signals during the time of Washington, and so the railroad didn't really have a choice. It was a federal regulation that hung us up on that one. But yes, the rail, we have differing levels of success depending upon the specific railroad, but they are difficult to work with, and they're mainly worried about their rail. The stability of the bed under the rails. If there's drainage that goes under their rail system, they're worried about keeping that right. But the little swell ditches that run alongside the rails, they're just really not worried about.
So Union Pacific is not participating or contributing in any way on this project?
No, sir.
Okay.
Just Mr. Williams, it just makes me a little uncomfortable, especially when we go through budgetary restraints and we're cutting things out of the budget and we're spending this kind of money on something to accommodate our citizens that's, particularly really not our responsibility.
Yeah, well, Bart makes a good point. Railroad can be very difficult. They have certain rights that many other entities don't, and cities don't preclude their rights typically. So, usually if you can get someone there that's willing to work with you, you might can get some things done, depending on who's working in your region, et cetera. But typically, they're very difficult to work with and get some things done. And it's more of a service that we're offering to our citizens by paying for it. We'd rather have our citizens have their area mowed than the railroads say we're not going to do it, nothing happens.
Councilman Getz?
I'm imagining that the railroads don't have their own equipment to go out and cut ditches. That's not typically what they do. They would have to contract this out. But has anybody from the city approached them to see if they'd be willing to help kick in for anything like this? Or we just know from experience that that's going to be a hard no and we haven't even tried?
We started there when the citizen was complaining about her drainage, and we realized it went through this ditch, and we had to mop it out and make some improvements to correct the problem that was going on. We started with asking them to maintain that ditch, mop it out, but no, they're really not worried about those ditches that go parallel to the rail. It doesn't really impact them until it got to such point that it would erode the rail bed itself. Then they would be worried about it. Now, we have in the recent past been able to work with BNSF a little bit after a lot of efforts, and they've actually contributed by providing the flagging that's required for some of our projects, and that can add up. That's like $1,000 a day for flagging on the rail. But as far as Union Pacific goes, we really haven't been able to get any participation.
They don't want to trail behind BNSF, do they? I mean, come on.
They don't care.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving item number 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 9, please?
Council consider resolution authorizing the publication of a notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation in an amount not to exceed $12 million. And this comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 9?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 9. Is there any discussion? Councilman Durio.
Yeah, Mr. Williams or one of y'all, if you can explain exactly what the certificate of obligation bond is and what we're gonna be spending this money on if we get it, what projects we're planning to do for the general public.
Yes, sir. So certificates of obligation are issued for basically infrastructure projects, streets and drainage. And so I had submitted an item there at your station, which is the cash that we need to complete the 2024 CIP projects that were already in the CIP. We're just going to be unable to finish those unless we have an infusion of cash, which we're going to have to issue certificates of obligation to obtain. So you can see we still had some 555 Main has to be paid for. We're still working on our street rehab projects, bridge repairs, sidewalk repairs, the major drive at Northwest Parkway traffic signal, the citywide ditching, the stormwater pipe inspections and point repair, and the West Lucas Drive storm sewer rehab. So all of those together, we took the total amount of the budget, what we spent to date, the cash that we still have on hand, and the difference, basically, the cash needed is $12 million.
Okay. Does this affect people's taxes or anything like that?
It will to a minor degree. I have Dusty Traylor here, who's our financial analyst or financial advisor, and he can speak to some of this and go on with the timeline also of the issuance.
Certainly. Good evening, Dusty Traylor, Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets. We have the honor and privilege of serving the city of Beaumont as financial advisor. Specifically to your question, Mr. Durio, on the $12 million certificates of obligation, we estimate that the annual debt service payments on these will be approximately $885,000 per year. If the city's tax rate were not to, if the city's tax base were not to grow at all, that would amount to maybe 1 cent on the INS tax rate, or a little bit less than 1 cent on the INS tax rate, but we do anticipate that the city's ad valorem tax base to grow, so we do not anticipate it having to require that much of a tax rate increase. In terms of timing, the item before you tonight starts the process for issuing. You're not actually approving the actual issuance of debt tonight. You're just starting the clock towards publication of the notice. That publication must be published for a period of at least 45 days. So it is our anticipation to be back before council to seek your authorization to actually approve the sale of the COs on June the 18th. And so what we will do once council approves this notice is we will start the process of creating preliminary official statements, working closely with your staff to put together all of the necessary data, conducting conference calls with the rating agencies, and then being prepared to move into the market shortly after council approval on June the 18th.
Councilman Turner?
And to speak to some of that tax rate, are we talking property tax and sales tax that we're hoping we're successful with?
The certificates of obligation are not, sales tax is not part of the certificates of obligation. We're talking about growth in tax base.
Okay.
Those types of things.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All in favor of approving item number 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 10, please?
Council consider a request for a rezoning from RMH Residential Multiple Family Highest Density District to PD Port Development District for blocks surrounded by Beaufort, Port Lamar, Herring, Stewart, and Liper Streets, including lots approximately 160 feet south of Lamar Street, southern right-of-way boundary line. And at a joint public hearing held on April 15, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve the request. And that's with an approval, a recommendation of approval of the ordinance.
Is there a motion for item number 10?
So move. Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 10. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I'm so sorry. I didn't get the motion in the second.
So move.
Second, thank you.
Is there any discussion on item number 10? All those in favor of approving item number 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 11?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow 2 duplexes within the RCRH Residential Conservation Revitalization Historic District for property located at 2490 Liberty Avenue. And at a joint public hearing held on April 15, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve with the following conditions. 1, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements of the city's backflow, pretreatment, and or fault program. And 2, construction plans shall comply with all applicable fire and building code requirements.
Is there a motion for item number 11?
So move to approve.
Is there a second for approval?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for item number 11. Is there any discussion? Councilman Getz.
Was there any complaints or pushback from any of the citizens of the historical district with regard to this at the planning and zoning meeting?
I will defer to our new Director of Planning and Community Development, Demi Ingman.
Yes, sir. There were a couple. They expressed concerns about density increases to that lot. And also privacy. It will be 2 stories. So, being able to see into a backyard. I believe that Cornell Price, the applicant, he did express that he would erect an 8-foot fence. So that in hopes to remedy that. But that was mostly the concerns.
Was any concern expressed about reduction of property values or anything like that?
I'm sorry, yes, there was. It was actually an increase to property values due to the increase in density.
It was going to increase their property values?
That's what they were concerned about, yes, sir.
Because of the state of the current property versus having new construction.
Right.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Are they gonna do this, since it's in a historic district, are there certain rules that they have to go by as far as when he builds it?
Yes, sir. He did appear before the Historic Landmark Commission. He received approval on the facade or the proposal. And then they also received a variance to the rear yard setback as well from the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other questions, all those in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, will you please take us into the work session?
Yes, Mayor. Council to discuss traffic calming and a proposed residential traffic calming program. And Mr. Bart Bokowiak will come and make a presentation.
Evening, Council. So we're going to run through a proposed traffic calming program this evening. I think Brandon Belair, our traffic engineer, will also hand out a manual, a proposed manual for this that goes along with the presentation. I'll give him just a second. Go pass it down. So traffic calming programs are used by cities to reduce speeding and enhance safety for all road users. And during this presentation, we'll walk through key components of our proposed program, including identifying existing issues, recommending specific traffic calming devices, outlining the step-by-step process, and detailing the criteria and procedures for the fair evaluation of requested streets. The top, back up one. Thank you. One of the top complaints received from citizens is speeding, as I'm sure y'all are well aware. Currently, public work staff will set up temporary traffic counters to gather speed and traffic volume data as part of a traffic study, and then we share that data with the police department's traffic unit so they can effectively target enforcement operations. So instead of just going out to a neighborhood and enforcing for a few hours, we can actually give them targeted data that says that primary speeding in this neighborhood is between 4 and 5 in the evening and 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, so they can be effective. And unfortunately, police enforcement alone has limitations in addressing speeding issues in the long term, which is why we're looking at some more permanent measures. So a traffic calming program's purpose is to install traffic calming devices where necessary to slow the speed of traffic. This proposed traffic calming program's goal is to effectively evaluate where those traffic calming devices are needed and to pin down exactly what would be appropriate to reduce speeding in that area. So the first tool in our toolbox is called a feedback sign, which helps boost awareness of speeding and encourage safer driving by displaying how fast the vehicle is going, along with messages like slow down and too fast if you're exceeding the speed limit. These signs are our initial tool to combat speeding problems due to a balance of effectiveness and cost efficiency. Our plan is to temporarily install these signs on each requested street for a 2-month period. We'll collect traffic data before, during, and after the sign installation to monitor their effectiveness in that neighborhood. The feedback signs will also be available as part of permanent installations, which we'll discuss a little further. The approximate cost per sign is $4,000. Most streets will need 2 signs, one going in each direction. And we actually have put, as part of a pilot program that was funded in this year's budget, we bought 2 signs and we installed them on Peyton Drive on March 21st. And then we pulled the data again on April 16th to evaluate in that first month how effective is that sign. So before we put the sign in place, the 85th percentile speed, or the speed at which 85% of the traffic driving down that road, was 37 miles an hour. While that sign's been in place this month, it's 35 miles an hour. So we've reduced it by 2. The average speed before on Peyton was 32 miles an hour, and now with the sign in place, it's 27 miles an hour. And the percent of traffic that's speeding down Peyton before we put the sign in place was 63% of the overall traffic down Peyton. And while that sign's been in place, 22% of the traffic is speeding. So at least in the first initial month, we're seeing a good response to the sign being in the neighborhood. Now, we're going to leave that sign on Peyton for another 2 months. What we're trying to do with the pilot is we wanted to see, number one, is the sign of an effective device to slow traffic in a neighborhood? But 2, is there a fall-off period? After the sign's installed for a period of time, is there some point after which they start ignoring the sign and then your speeding starts going back up? So we'll be looking at that over the next 60 days to see what impact the time has to the traffic speed along Peyton. But the initial results were encouraging. Our next tool in the toolbox is speed cushions, what used to be referred to commonly as speed bumps. So if the feedback signs prove ineffective in reducing speeding issues long-term, speed cushions would be the preferred initial option for a permanent traffic calming device. The speed cushions are a modern solution to address speeding with fewer drawbacks compared to an old-fashioned speed bump. They're large rubber mounds, which will gradually go up and down, which is kinder to the car, smoother ride, but still effective in reducing speeds. Unlike traditional speed bumps, they're less likely to cause any vehicle damage, and the way they're sized and placed on the road, they do not impede emergency vehicles. So they're friendly to emergency response. The costs do go up as we go along here, so it's $1,700 per speed cushion. Even in a relatively small section of street, about 300 feet, you're going to need a set of 2 or 3 of those installed to be effective. So to give you kind of an idea of what we're talking about, if we did speed humps on Peyton, it would be, we estimate it would be $23,000 to install them along Peyton and be effective. Another road we looked at was Thomas Road. It would cost $54,000 by our estimate to put them in along Thomas. So obviously the feedback signs are much lower cost than when you get into permanent installations.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
So you just mentioned Peyton and Thomas Road. What if a neighborhood wanted to pay for it themselves? Is there a mechanism in place that they could do that?
We thought about that, and if you look at the program, the very last sheet is an FAQ sheet, and the very last question on the sheet is, can you purchase your own feedback signs? But of course, that could go along to potentially speed humps as long as we agree they're safe in the neighborhood. And our thoughts on it were that could be a potential solution with y'all's approval, that a citizen group could come up with the funding, donate that funding to the city for the installations of those signs. Citizens have donated other items to the city in the past, park benches, things of that nature, and it would kind of follow along that same guidelines.
I mean, my thought is if it meets the criteria and somebody else is willing to pay for it, then why would we say no?
Right.
Councilman Durio?
Well, as you get wider, it gets more complicated to be able to effectively address that. So we've been looking at some other solutions such as road diets for the larger roads. Plus, as you get into larger roads, you get into the larger volumes of traffic, which typically gets you into more of a arterial road where you really can't put speed humps along the major roads that are trying to drive traffic.
Do you have road diets in this presentation?
We do not, because we're evaluating those in-house and then implementing them along the way. So we didn't put them as part of the request.
As you know, I've received a lot of calls about the road diet on 4th Street.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you explain to the folks what exactly a road diet is?
So a road diet is a reduction of the lanes of travel along a road. It's typically done to a 4-lane road or 4 travel lanes on a road. You reduce it down to 2 travel lanes. As you see on Sarah and 4th Street, we went from 4 travel lanes to 2 travel lanes with a continuous turn lane plus bike lanes. And so the goal there is to slow traffic down. You put it in place when you're seeing excessive wrecks, excessive speeding. Benefits in addition to just slowing traffic down is that if you did not have a center turn lane previous, a lot of the traffic accidents along that road are going to be traffic stopping in a lane of travel to turn. Well, you don't have that once you restripe the road and you have a continuous turn lane. The traffic that needs to turn left has a safe place to go to outside the lane of travel. And so that's a large part of your reduction in wrecks along that road.
Can you also explain the type of research and testing that's done before you decide to do a road diet?
We go through a traffic study, we gather information with regards to volume of traffic on the road, speed of traffic on the road. We look at the crash history over the previous numbers of years, and then we churn that data and we look to make sure there's not too much traffic on the road where you would be backing traffic up and whether it's appropriate or not in there. And we are evaluating the after on all of these roads as well. We did an initial 6-month follow-up on the first 2 roads, which were Beaufort and Gladys, and we did see a positive reduction in the speed along those roads. And we're right at about a year, and we'll be looking at comparing a year with the road diet versus the year before without the road diet and see if it impacted traffic accidents as well.
It did that on Calder Street as well, didn't it?
Calder predated me in terms of putting it in, but Calder went from two lanes, much like 4th was striped previously, with no center turn lane, and we put medians in that case with 2 travel lanes and bike lanes all the way down Calder. And Calder drives nice. I mean, so, and plus we got drainage down Calder when we put that in.
Thank you, Bart.
This is a good spot too to just take a minute. I'm going to introduce Brandon Belair, our traffic engineer, and I'm going to get him to show you the 2 devices that we typically use to gather that data when we talk about traffic studies.
All right, this is the radar counter. We set this up along long streets, mid-block. It gets attached to a utility pole, kind of up in the air, and it faces the traffic and emits a radar. And then it's able to count the vehicles as they go past it. It can tell the difference between oncoming and outgoing. It can tell the difference between small, medium, and large vehicles. So motorcycles, trucks, buses. And then after about 2 weeks, I download the data, and it can spit out hour by hour, day by day data for how many vehicles, the volume, average speeds, quite a bit of information. This is a camera. We place it at the corner of intersections, way up in the air, and it can record a busy intersection for 2 days. We use these mainly for signals, for timing, and if someone requests a signal, we'll throw this up there and then get the footage back and count it, how many cars are turning left, right, pedestrians, that kind of thing. So
So that gives you somewhat of an idea of what you might see in the field as opposed to the old style tubes that TxDOT will lay out, so.
Can I, also the signs that give you the speed, sometimes they are often equipped with, they're able to gather that data too. They're able to gather speeds, but not only speeds, sometimes types of vehicles, time of day. Some of them even will record weather conditions during when things are happening. So you get a lot of information from those devices.
Yeah, and the city manager is entirely correct. Those signs do gather data. So we would use those devices prior to installing the sign because we don't want anybody to know the sign's coming, so we can get the behavior of the traffic before the sign's installed. But once the sign's in place, it's gathering that same traffic data so that we get with those devices. And so we get that information and are able to evaluate what's going on.
So can these cameras be integrated with the new real-time crime lab cameras that the police have? Can they be a part of that system?
Well, the one device is just radar, no camera.
I'm talking about the camera.
It's short-term in duration, so it's not for permanent use. But I believe they are looking at possibly tying into the traffic cameras that are at the intersections and make use of those, which are permanent installations.
Okay. May I ask you a little bit about the speed cushions? Because having had a conversation, I want to get clarity and just, I know in past the speed bumps or humps, oftentimes they would be on a road for a long permanently. You know, they'd be put there. But this, am I understanding that these would be put there for a period of time to calm traffic, or would they be permanent?
They would be permanent as well. They're bolted into the roadway surface. The only difference is your old style speed bumps were typically asphalt shaped on the road, and these are made of rubber and they're installed on the road. Some examples would be the HEBs had put these in place in front of their stores, and if you go to our fleet facility on Laughlin Road, we've installed them there as well when we put the new concrete in.
Councilman Guess?
The old style asphalt speed bumps, why wouldn't we still be able to use those? Because it seems to me those would be less expensive than the cushions. And if you made them in such a way where the emergency vehicles would still be able to get through, in other words, not have the asphalt all the way across the street, wouldn't they be similar? The argument I always had given to me about the asphalt style speed bumps is that it would impede emergency vehicles. It would seem to me that if you put them in such a fashion that, as you can see from that diagram that is up there with the fire truck, wouldn't that be the same thing?
I think you're going to see that with the asphalt, you're going to get degradation of that asphalt over time, and then it'll be a rougher bump.
Yeah, they hit it at 90 miles an hour, but, you know,
And
they're
then
going to do that once.
Then you get possible vehicle damage. I mean, this is really the modern solution to be able to slow traffic down, but not hurt the cars in any way. Yes, sir.
Councilman Turner?
Even with possible legal damage, if someone's speeding, the city, how could we even be held liable if they're the one speeding in the wrong? Sheree, can you kind of speak to that? Because I know people have called me so they hit potholes, and I can only imagine what's going to happen. I support it, but.
So this is a traffic control device, similar to any other traffic control device. So if someone's speeding and they hit a stop sign, are we responsible? If someone's speeding and they run into a pole, are we responsible? The posted speed limit is prima facie notice and evidence to slow down. So adding an additional traffic control device to a street is not the same as a indentation or defect or whatever they want to identify it as. Not to say that a pothole is a defect in the road. So slow down, plaintiff's attorneys out there. That's not what I said. So any modifications that you put into the roadway as an additional traffic control device does not impart any additional liability on the city. Road users and drivers are responsible for following traffic laws. That's just an extension of that.
I think that's important to speak to. Thank you.
Councilman Getz, then Councilman Duria.
And so with that further clarification, I would like to know what the cost would be to put an asphalt speed bump out there as opposed to, I mean, you know, we need to slow our traffic down. I had a occasion this past weekend where a lady was driving down feeling way too fast, lost control of her fence. Her car went through my neighbor's fence. Luckily, she didn't get hurt, because if she'd have hit the brick column or the pole, she probably would have not walked away from that. But, you know, completely destroyed the fence, and the car ended up in my neighbor's backyard. So I would like to see what kind of cost comparison we're talking about there.
I can look at it and see if they can be, if anybody's put them in a fashion like this. I will state that asphalt's now up to north of $210 a ton, so it's gone up quite a bit. Just for reference, a couple years ago it was $85 a ton, so we're not talking inexpensive on asphalt anymore.
Councilman Duria.
Ms. Reed, Sheree, so on the, if a car hits a road bump or speed bump that we installed and lose control and somebody dies, we may not feel we'd be having liability, but they're still probably gonna sue the city.
So that's exactly what Councilman Samuel asked me. So let me explain something to you. If someone's driving down the road and the posted speed limit is 30 miles per hour, that's what they typically are in neighborhoods, right?
That's the prima facie speed.
Yeah, prima facie speed is like 30 miles per hour in a neighborhood. And you go over that speed bump at 30 miles per hour, or you reduce your speed as you're supposed to go over that speed bump to maybe 20, 25, and you spin out of control and you wreck your vehicle and die, I promise you there's some other things going on in that car. So in order for the city to be liable, because we talk about this all the time, liability versus being named in the suit. I can't protect you from being sued. Somebody can sue you because they don't like your pink tie today, and we will file a case to dismiss it. Hey man, not everybody's a fan of pink. I prefer red myself. But we can sue you.
My wife likes it.
And I hope she's on the jury for that case. The point I'm trying to make is that it doesn't stop them from filing the lawsuit. It doesn't stop them from filing the claim. What we're talking about, when I tell you about all the time, is that the liability is based around our protections and defenses that we have for the city. And so a traffic control device does not impart additional liability to the city. Now, there might be some other issues as it relates to how this affects our emergency management vehicles, where we place these items and how they're strategically placed throughout the city. I think that's a different conversation and a different discussion. But as it relates to our liability, there's nothing you can do to stop people from suing you. People file frivolous lawsuits all the time, and people file frivolous claims all the time. So if you're asking me, is it going to increase the amount of claims that we receive in the city? Potentially. And there's not going to be any way to know that somebody went over it going 30 miles per hour, if they went over it going 45 miles per hour, and it tore up the bottom of their car. There's no way to determine that. But the reality is that if they got into a wreck on a street and they were going, and the posted speed limit was 45, just in the arterial ring, and they're going 65, they couldn't say that the city should have lowered their speed limit or raised the speed limit to avoid the accident. They can sue for it, but it's not a viable claim. Fails every time.
Okay. And I'm assuming too, there's got to be quite a bit of case law on this, because there's several cities. I mean, I lived in Houston in the 80s, and they had speed bumps then, or
Fun fact,
speed humps.
The case that the city relies on to defend and deny pothole claims is from the 1800s. It was a wagon wheel case. A wooden wagon wheel case, and it is still good case law.
That is a fun fact. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll move on from speed cushions. If you can, sorry, we've been on that one a while. So the first two tools in the toolbox that we talked about were the feedback signs and the speed cushions, and those were lower bars of entry, less cost to put in, especially the feedback signs. The next three options that we're going to talk about reducing speeding are going to require construction. So your costs are going to go up, and it'll depend on the length of the road. But we wanted to address these as well. So basically, all three options will reduce speeding by varying wide and straight travel paths in some manner. So primarily accomplished by narrowing the travel lanes, because drivers tend to naturally slow down when they're in narrower lanes than if you have a wide open, very wide lane. The ideal implementation of these methods would require reconstruction of portions of the roadway, which includes engineering plans and bidding out the construction as a major project. So what was mentioned earlier was Calder. Calder would be a good example of that. Therefore, these options will be considered if the feedback signs and the speed cushions are deemed ineffective or not suitable for a specific street. You can use these types of methods in collectors and potentially even arterials to some degree where you can't use the speed cushions. The first of the options, which we have on the page now, is called a chicane. So these are small sections of curb and landscaping strategically placed along the edge of a street to narrow and shift the travel path. It disrupts an otherwise straight path and prompts drivers to slow down. A lot of times these are paired with medians, as we see in one of the pictures, to prevent drivers from just simply cutting around and passing around the object. Multiple sets are usually needed along a street, and sometimes medians are needed as well, and the costs will vary greatly depending upon the street and the length and how much construction is necessary.
So to answer Councilman Durio's question before he even asked it, this will be considered a design feature, and there is standard and well-standing case law that says that cities and municipalities are not responsible for wrecks or accidents that relate based on a design function. The individual would have to prove that the design function was inherently dangerous or defective in order to do that.
Okay, I wasn't gonna ask a question.
The next option is our medians, which we were talking about in combination with the chicanes. But raised medians are a benefit, such as on Calder. It will slow traffic down. They serve as a vertical obstruction, positioned along the center line, encourages slower speeds. You can also contribute to the aesthetic appeal. Again, like we did on Calder in certain sections, you can put landscaping in. You can put planter boxes on the medians if you wish. And then these medians also can serve as pedestrian refuge areas. So if someone's crossing the street, it gives them a place to stand if they can't get all the way across, a safe place that they're out of traffic. So it promotes safer interaction between cars and pedestrians. And the last one are curb extensions. Curb extensions extend the corners of an intersection out into the street, which again causes the travel lanes to become narrower. By reducing the distance from one side of the street to the other, this does help minimize pedestrian exposure. There's less street that they have to cross. It also gives more visibility to pedestrians because they're kind of standing out almost in the road in that extended section of curb. You see some of these features in downtown intersections. Natchez and Wall would be an example. Some of this was done when we did the intersections and the brick sidewalks downtown and have those kind of bulbous extensions at the intersection. It was paired in our downtown area a lot of times with street parking. So you'd have that extension and then you'd have street parking down behind it to the next intersection. And this again would involve construction. And one problem with this is you do have to pay attention to drainage and utilities. If drainage is going on the surface along the curb and you extend the curb out, you have to make sure that you're not impeding drainage and cause flooding in the area.
Just curious that, I mean, these are all very interesting and appear to be effective methods. I'm assuming there's some analytics that are done as we're doing right now, for example, on which is most effective. And I understand it does depend on the type of road that it is, and it may be even the terrain that the road's built on. But in terms of comparable cities, is there data like that available in terms? Because clearly the signs that are able to read are the least expensive, but
Right.
you want to have the best effect as well.
The signs are the least expensive. However, when you go out and you look at research, there's also the widest disparity in studies on how effective they are. You can find studies that show they're great, and you can find other studies that show that the effect is short-term in duration, doesn't last that long. That's primarily why we wanted to pilot it in Beaumont and see what the impact is here with those first two signs we put in. Anything permanent you put on the road to impede traffic in some manner, either make them go over a cushion or take a turn or a curve, or you narrow the road, then that'll slow it down. But it's just going to depend on the geographic area of that road. Do we have right of way? Do we have the money to do full-on construction? We presented it in this presentation basically in the order we'd like to consider it as somebody's asking or complaining about speeding in an area. If we find it's valid, we want to start at the low end and then go up in order to address that.
Yes, Councilman Sam.
Well, I like the presentation, but a lot of things have come to mind. One, and when I spoke with our attorney, there's been a change. I think there's been a change in possible perception and philosophy that's transcending through the years. Because initially I was told, and it was my understanding, that there were issues with having speed bumps because of liability to the city for not only repairs to individuals or repairs in the event of accidents, but also because of perceived litigation. I understand that, and I have seen, even throughout the time, I always asked, how is it Houston can have speed bumps in their streets and we couldn't? So that's one. But I think one of the things that's more that I see becoming an issue, we are beginning to get into some subjectivity. It's going to be subject to what someone thinks we should do in their particular neighborhood to slow traffic. I've gotten a lot of concerns expressed by us moving from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes and putting bike paths on one side or some middle lane. And that has caused some people to have concerns because they said, well, why are they doing that? And some of that, as I understood, was to slow traffic down also.
Yes, sir.
So if we're having those type of concerns now, we will have them again. Then it comes to the subjectivity as to what type of calming are we going to have in certain neighborhoods across the city. How will that decision be made? Who will make that decision? Because if you're putting curbs or what do you call that when the chicanes in the middle, then you're going to have some curves in the middle of the street. And in some neighborhoods, some folks are going to hit them. And just because they sue, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll win, but those are issues that's going to come back to each one of us on council as to why are they doing this in North End or in the South End and not doing it everywhere else? Or why is it they get these pretty curves in one? So these are all issues that come along with it. I believe we need to do something about slowing down traffic. And I think it can be aesthetically pleasing with this type of project across the city. But I do know that there are going to be some issues that's going to come about it because people don't like change.
Yes, Councilman Turner, then Councilman Getz.
One thing that I'm ecstatic about today, in 2021, when I was on the council, I remember, I think I was block walking with Councilman Samuel on the north end, and Ada Street came about, and we discussed traffic calming within our community, and we were told, we were told at the time that basically what he stated earlier. And, to say we've been talking about this for years, I can only imagine how many years it was prior to me being on the council. To see today, we brought it to our city manager and staff and team to see what we were told wasn't possible, is possible, is, it's like a breath of fresh air today. I remember a student coming up here and towards the end of 2021 in reference to Thomas Road, and his father even said, I would finance this for the entire street. So I remember all these things that have came about, and to see us push for this and continue to be consistent and to see something that was started in 2021 since I was here, and I can only imagine what was discussed prior to me being here, it's just really a breath of fresh air. And Mr. Williams, I really want to say thank you. Like, this is something that citizens have asked for, and I know a lot of people may not be susceptible to change and may not want change, but this is a change we need in order to protect and take care of our community, especially the neighborhoods. I get arterial streets are different. Come to mind, we get a lot of complaints about the senior citizen facility on Lucas by the railroad tracks. I understand that's an arterial street, but if we can't get that, maybe with this traffic calming policy, maybe a real red light, not the flashing red light. I don't know the past from it, but that has been an issue, and we had some of the seniors come up here and speak about it, several times. So just to see this come to fruition is like a breath of fresh air, because I was told it couldn't be done, and I'm seeing it can be done. I just want to thank you guys, all right?
Councilman Getz.
We hadn't finished the whole presentation, but if we would, then we'd see that there's not really subjectivity, but there's a very objective and methodical way that your department, Bart, would go about determining how these types of traffic calming devices would be implemented. And it's not just subjective. There's a litany of things that you have to do. More importantly, you're looking at doing things, as I understand it from what you presented today, primarily in residential neighborhoods.
Yes.
And, I don't care if people get upset about that. They don't like that, because all it takes is for one child to get killed. They're not going to like that very much either. People need to slow the heck down. And I, like Councilman Turner, want to compliment you with bringing this forward to us to look at some toolbox options that you might have. And I encourage you to proceed with due haste in figuring out, as I understand it, petitions are the way that these things are initiated, and they have to have citizen input to have you start evaluating. That's the first step. You
These
might want
next
to elaborate.
slides will go through that process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. If there's no other immediate questions, because y'all may have input on this as well. So the first step is simply for the citizen to request us to look at speeding in their neighborhood and that they desire some type of traffic calming device. So we're going to have that on the city's website so they can go through the online permitting portal. If it's a citizen that's uncomfortable with that, we can help them through that process. But the first step is just to ask about their neighborhood. The second step is we will review that requested street and we'll look at some initial criteria. We need to make sure that the street is owned by the city. It's not a private street. It needs to be a residential or collector, not an arterial road, and it needs to be a through street, so not a dead-end street in there. So if it's eligible under the criteria, then
we would go on to step 3. If it's ineligible, we would tell them that street's not eligible under this program. So step 3 would be us asking the citizen to submit an initial petition form. What this is asking them to do is get 5 people along their street to agree that they want a traffic calming device to be put in that neighborhood to show that there's some support in that neighborhood for this. Now, at the same time that they start this process, we're going to go ahead and put them on a rotation list to install those feedback signs that we put on Peyton. What we're proposing is that in this budget, upcoming budget, we're going to ask to fund 10 signs to be available for us to rotate around the city. The plan would be to put them in for a 2-month period and rotate them. And so that would allow each set of 2 signs to be in 6 locations through the year. So if we have an initial inventory of 10 signs, we can get through 30 streets with a sign rotation during the year. And that'll start, they'll be put on the rotation list as they're working on that initial petition for the 5 additional residents that support it. And then we'll perform a full speed study on the street. We'll do that before we put anything in place, and then we'll put the feedback sign in place, and then we'll find out what happens with the sign installed, and then we'll come back again with the sign uninstalled after the 2-month period and see what happens to the traffic. Looking at this, we're looking for the traffic volume and speed data to meet certain criteria to make them eligible for permanent traffic calming devices. We need the traffic volume to be 400 to 3,000 vehicles a day. And we need the 85th percentile speed to be greater than 33 miles an hour. In other words, we're looking that they actually have speeding on the street. So at least 33 for that 85th percentile. If it's ineligible for permanent measures because it doesn't meet those criteria, we can keep it on that rotation list that has the feedback sign put in for a 2-month period and rotate it back around later. So we can keep that going. If it's eligible, the residents prefer the permanent devices, then we could, if we see that the feedback signs are effective, recommend that the feedback signs be made permanent on that particular road. That's the lowest cost of entry. If they're effective, if the feedback signs are effective, but the speeding increases, let me back up a bit. If the speeding doesn't increase when we remove the sign and we can simply rotate it in on that road and not put them in permanently and it addresses it, we'll stop there. If the speeding goes up when we take the sign back out, then we'll look to put the signs in permanently. If the signs become ineffective after some period of time, then we'll move on to speed cushions. If we're looking to put the speed cushions in, since they're a more permanent installation, or if we're looking at any of those methods that require construction, we're going to ask a final petition be gathered from the residents along that road. And we're looking for 70% of the residents to be in favor of the traffic calming device. And what we're looking for there is buy-in from the neighborhood so that we don't do something that costs money and then have an uprising that they want it ripped back out. And I don't know if y'all saw the news in Houston, they put medians in on the previous mayor along Houston Avenue, and now the new mayors come in, they're ripping those medians out in response to some businesses that are along that street that did not want them. And so we don't want a back and forth process. We want buy-in, we want the community to agree this is a good thing and something that they want moving forward. And this petition with 70% of the residents, in the case of the feedback signs, we won't need that extent of a petition to be gathered as long as we have the initial residents agree to put the signs in their yard. If we have that, then we don't need anything further. Now, I state that because we put Peyton Drive, we had 100% of the residents sign that they wanted something done to the speed along that road. When we went to put the temporary signs in this pilot program, the first yard that we asked, they said, well, this is great, but we don't want it in our yard. So can you put it somewhere else? Luckily, their neighbor took it. But even if they agree something needs to be done, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want the sign in their yard or they want the speed cushion in front of their house. So those are all factors as you look at the details of an installation. So once we get the final petition with 70% of the neighborhood, then city staff will recommend a solution based on the characteristics of the street and the speed study that's been conducted. And we'll take into account resident feedback during that planning design process. And then once a final design is agreed upon between city staff and the residents, we'll have a cost estimate for that particular installation. And then we're going to calculate a safety score. And I won't go through all the details of that, but it is in the larger manual that we handed out to y'all. So we'll take a lot of factors into consideration. We'll look at traffic volume, 85th percentile speed, crash history. Are there sidewalks along that road or not for pedestrians? Are there pedestrian generators in that area, such as schools, bus stops, churches, that would have more walking traffic? And all that put together, we generate a safety score. And that's to stack rank the priority of putting in a traffic calming device on that particular street. And then our proposed plan is that as we're doing these, as they come in during the year, we'll stack rank them. And then when we come into the budget process, like we are this year, we'll bring them to council and we'll ask for funding for those specific projects for the next fiscal year. The only hang up on that proposal would be this next fiscal year. If y'all were interested in funding traffic calming devices in neighborhoods in fiscal year 25, then we would need to have a set sum of funding that we would use until it run out in that first year. But subsequent years, we'd gather up stack rank projects. We'd come during the budget process and ask for consideration for funding for those. And that is the end of my presentation, but I'll be glad to take any questions. And I would like to thank our traffic engineer, Brandon Belair, who's put most of the effort into putting this together, and also our communications division for helping us make it look pretty, because we're not really good at that in engineering. So they cleaned it up for us.
Bart, one last question. My bad, Councilman. One last question before you walk off. What happens in the efforts that we say an area that's a school zone, a neighborhood school, and we do the study and 100% of the neighbors want it, but it doesn't meet the criteria based upon our study? Could the council still have the authority to put it there if the majority of the neighbors and citizens want it?
As long as it doesn't negatively impact safety, then yeah, that would be in y'all's purview.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
I would caution
Now your
against that,
attorney's
though.
gonna speak to you.
Hi. I would caution against that. The parameters that are put in place are intended to do so to establish essentially a defense for how and why we do things. The reason why it's objective in the study is so that it provides data and support to do something. To Councilman Guess's point, I understand that, the safety of our children are the utmost importance, and we definitely don't want to say we want to wait to something bad to happen. But absent any evidence that it's required or needed, so to speak, that it fails every one of our objective tests, you wouldn't be able to really support the idea that why it's there. Then it becomes more subjective than objective, to Councilman Samuel's point. However, if you had a tragic incident that happened in that intersection sometime after or sometime before without the study, it could be warranted to do that. But just doing something unilaterally because everybody wants and they think it's a great idea wouldn't be in the best interest. You lose your subjectivity. And I know there's always a question about what happens in one ward versus another, but just using Regina Howe, several kids walk to that school. It's pretty bitty glass, but several kids walk to that school as opposed to in some other neighborhoods where kids don't walk to school. And so maybe a traffic study there would say because of the increased number of pedestrians, because of the increased number of children walking, it's a needed effect as opposed to another school that doesn't have the same walking or children riding their bikes to school. So we give it to that particular school in that particular neighborhood. Obviously, by raise some redbacks in other neighborhood where everyone would want it, but it's not supported by the criteria that we have in place. And so to maintain objectivity, to maintain a clear standard of processes, I would urge the council not to do things unilaterally just based on them meeting the petition requirement, because it's really the traffic study that gives the council the most insulation and support.
Understood. I
will
know it's
say-
coming. That's why I wanted to ask in advance.
I will say too, if it doesn't meet our criteria, basically, but the data says there's not a speeding issue and there's not a safety issue in that area. And to the city attorney's point, wrecks alone, whether they are pedestrian, auto, or just auto wrecks alone can cause you to put in safety measures even before you see the speeding.
And there's manual on uniform traffic codes too that gives criteria that allows you to put in certain traffic safety devices. And if you don't follow that sometime, and it actually, before we put in a stop sign, we're supposed to go out and do a study, some type of scientific study, because sometimes you create dangerous situations by doing such, and then you create something and someone get hurt, then you're more susceptible for something happen. So that's why it's good to have that objective data in those traffic situations to be able to do that. And we've been speaking of speeding, but this is more than just speeding. This is a traffic analysis that looks at overall traffic safety. You know, we're talking about pedestrian people too, you know, that are walking on street and crossing streets, and these traffic common devices protect them too. You know, somebody might run a stop sign and not be speeding. So there's a lot of situations that this protects you. And this is nothing new. It's been out there for years, decades and decades, these traffic common devices for traffic safety and stuff. And with the studies, with the scientific studies, you know, and it's, you know, most of it's to cut through traffic. It's good for streets like Thomas, where people are trying to avoid Lucas, and they want to cut through between Delaware and Gladys or whatever that is, and things like that. So it's conducive for those type situations, and it can also decrease those traffic volumes on those streets. They're not made for those volumes. You know, again, it's not always speeders. It's just it's a good way to control traffic and traffic devices, and it's a really good tool for our city.
Yes.
Mayor, thanks. I just want to make sure it's understood. I'm not pulling out a matchbox, trying to strike no match. But I've been doing this a long time, and I just know that there are some concerns that's going to come up when you bring about change. But I, too, want to thank you, Bart. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you for the work that you've done in attempting to make Beaumont a safer place, a better place to live. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for bringing that forth. So I wasn't taking a position. I was simply making an observation. And that's for those who don't like it, that's fine. But that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and you can make a good point. You know, sometimes there are equity issues that arise in these type situations. It's just natural for it to happen because some people have more resources than others to be able to pay for these speed humps or whatever it may be. So it's just naturally happens, and that's why it's good to have a good sound policy program to back you up as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you.
can I make one quick comment?
Yes, sir.
We have already begun to implement some of this in our discussion with developers in the subdivision process. So while it doesn't help our existing streets, for our new streets, which are, the cost of those are borne by the developer, we're already implementing some of these requests in the design of new streets.
That's preferable. All right, any other questions? At this point, we're going to move to council member comments, and I'll start with Councilman Neal.
No comment, Mayor.
Councilman Samuel?
No comment.
No comment, Mayor, thank you.
Councilman Turner?
Oh, well. A few comments about questions that were actually brought up and some of the public comments about, the additional water charge, how did it come about? Who's accountable for it? How was the letter sent out? Because I've got a lot of emails and phone calls about that as well.
Okay, we'll give you a report on that next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is, I think with the Sprout Park football field situation, I don't know if we need to do a work session on it. I kind of want to compliment Councilman Durio for stepping up and addressing it, but I know what we're up against, and we need to kind of see what we want to do as a council. We can get on the same page and be transparent as the community is requesting on what's going on with it and what's the plan moving forward with it. I kind of will yield to you on how you want to best address it, Mr. Manager.
Okay.
But Councilman Turner, before you move on, I think we did provide an update to council on the Sprout Park issue. So just for the benefit of the people who are here and those who are watching, the turf was delivered. The turf was vandalized by being set on fire. And city staff is working, it was donated. So, you can't go back and say, hey, can you give us more donations? And so the staff is working to find a comparable solution to that area. So the reason why there was work done and it wasn't put down is because the turf that was scheduled to be installed was vandalized. And so we've just had a hard time trying to replace that. So as it relates to the second issue on how it's going to be used, I think that we can workshop that or table that for a later discussion. But the primary focus right now is trying to replace something that was lost.
Understood. That's why I know we need to workshop it and figure out what we're going to do with the excess and figure out a plan going forward. Because I know we all know what took place, but we want to make sure the community is fully aware of the status of it and what actually took place.
Absolutely, and we want to be transparent in that. As we began to start on the project, we realized some things with the loss of that turf. So we had a conversation with Congressman, wow, Council Member Durio, because it's his ward first, and kind of to fill some things out, and then after that, we were going to proceed with the entire council, and we'll put it on the agenda and have a discussion with the entire council on how we want to proceed or resolve that issue.
And the last two with Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Allen, I got emails that, that was kind of taken care of. I don't know if everybody else received it, but I just want to make sure we follow up. And
so again, I can't really speak to the conversation she had with the member at the records department. I wasn't advised that we were doing an AG letter on that, so can't really comment on that part. However, as relates to her investigation, how it was handled, when police officers arrived on scene, there was a company marked vehicle and an employee that identified himself as being the individual who had hopped her fence to retrieve company property. I can say that I don't necessarily agree with the method that he used, but the officer was able to determine that he had a valid lease for the equipment that was on the property and a notice of retrieval. So he did do it that way. The officer chose to close the investigation with the least resistance. Could he have written a report? Maybe to that extent, but that's not always what happens when there's an incident that can be closed. If they investigate the incident and determine that there's no crime that's been committed, they close the report. The property that was retrieved was company property. I don't believe that Ms. Allen reported anything else stolen from her backyard. And so there was no further incident that needed to be reported on. The initial report that she was given didn't have a narrative, so requesting a narrative will require an officer to supplement his report. that was discussed with both his two supervising officers, who also determined that that was unnecessary, as well as one of the assistant chiefs.
Understood. I just feel like I do truly appreciate public safety, but when you have citizens coming to the dais asking about it weekly, I just think we need to kind of open up, like you said, with transparency and just let them know it has been handled and what has took place, and this is the results.
So I believe that assistant chief did reach out. One of our assistant chiefs did reach out to Ms. Allen. I don't believe it was resolved in the way that she wanted it to be resolved, and that's unfortunate. However, there was no misdoing or wrongdoing on the part of our officers. There are reports issued all the time that don't have full narratives because it's not necessary. Obviously, in the case of a citation for an accident report, there's a summons that's required both for insurance purposes because an accident or an actual thing occurred. In this particular situation, the individual did have all the proper documentation. I believe the employee was there, his supervisor arrived on scene. Both of them provided extensive documentation as it relates to their retrieval of property, no different than any other retrieval that would have occurred if you had a monitoring device at your house that you were leasing and that needed to be retrieved for lack of payment. And so they chose to do it that way. So that's kind of what the issue that took place, is that they had documentation that they had property on, leased equipment on her property that they needed to retrieve, and that's what they took action to do. Again, don't agree with the method in which he chose to do it in terms of jumping her fence, but according to the officer, there was no damage done or reported damage done to either the fence or the property where the item was retrieved, so there was no additional need to further a report.
Understood. I just want to address it because, you know, it's been consistent, and I appreciate the transparency and it being actually addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Turner. Councilman Getz?
First, I want to wish my son a happy birthday. That's the good news. Bad news is there's a lot of bad things happening on our college campuses right now. There's a lot of anti-Semitism going on in this country and around the world. Anti-Semitism, if you don't know what that term means hatred of Jews. And when you have young people, instead of attending classes, taking over university buildings, holding signs saying Hitler was right, death to the Jews, that's virulent anti-Semitism. The House of Representatives this week is taking up the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It's a bipartisan act. Both Republicans and Democrats support this. I'd like to see that act passed. I have strong feelings about this. My brother has lived in Israel for 45 years. He passed away last year. He's buried in Israel. I have a nephew that migrated to Israel to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. He still lives there. So, just to be persecuted for the religion you choose to believe is just as bad as being persecuted for the color of your skin. It's wrong. It's not who we are, and we need to do better, and we need to call it out when we see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Getz. Councilman Durio?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say 409 Day in Terrell Park this weekend. It was in a few areas, but it was a huge success. I went out there Saturday, had a great time. I mean, it was very well attended, and it was a huge success. Also, myself and Councilman Samuel played in the 100 Black Men Golf Tournament this weekend, and Councilman Samuel, I have to give it to him, he was awesome. He really was. He was very impressive. I had to give him his props. Also, I want to extend my condolences to the family of Mr. Bobby Frank. He was the crossing guard that would cross the students at Marshall Middle School. He passed recently, and he was one that's always out there waving at everybody. Also, to my family, my cousin Eric Gaucher passed. He was an auto body teacher at the Taylor Career Center, and he just recently passed unexpectedly also. So my condolences out to my family as well. Bart, thank you and your staff. That was an awesome presentation. Because of the stuff you've done at 4th Street and Sarah Street, made me ask all those questions kind of hoping that the folks that was watching could get the answers that they were looking for. And also on the Sprott Park turf, they delivered some old raggedy turf that was to be used as cushioning. It was put down, but the good turf that was supposed to go on top, it was put down and it was set on fire a week later. So right now we're fire department investigated that, and we're gonna plan it. We're gonna see what we can do. That's it, and that's all I got.
Madam City Attorney.
Well, first of all, there were some amazing events that occurred this weekend. So anyone that says that they didn't have anything to do in Beaumont obviously didn't check social media. So thank you to all of our staff and all the individuals who do great work in our city to put on amazing events. And congratulations to Demi Ingman. I have more girls on the dais, so that makes me excited. So looking forward to it.
Yes, sir.
I did want to give y'all an update on drainage. We had a really heavy rain early Monday morning. Rain gauges showed we got 4 inches in just probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. As a result, we had some flooding down MLK in particular with some cars that got in that flooding. The pump stations that were affected were the Royal Pump Station and then East Lavaca in Virginia by Lamar. Of those, the Royal Pump Station is the one that we just put 1 permanent pump back in. Despite only having 1 of 4 permanent pumps, we do have 3 additional temporary pumps in there while we're working on repairing the rest of the permanent pumps. It was just overloaded. It never went down. It was pumping the whole time, but it could not keep up. We do not have pumps missing or anything on those Lamar stations. They just got overloaded. The one closest to Cardinal wasn't as bad, though it was flooded and had some cars in it. But the other one at Lavaca lost power, unfortunately, for a bit, which made it even worse. Once the rain stopped, probably by 9:30, it was all cleared out. But when you get that much rain in a short period of time, unfortunately, those low-lying areas that depend on lift stations just cannot keep up, even if we have power on them. So that's what went on early Monday.
Just real quickly, wanted to welcome Tracy Kinnick to our team. Also wanted to congratulate Demi Ingman on her appointment to Director of Planning Community Development, and then also our appointment of Freddie Willard as the new Executive Director of CVB.
Just an update, Mayor and Council. This morning, some of the staff, well, including the Mayor, City Manager, Mr. Boone, Mr. Bartkowiak, and myself, we went to the County Commissioner's Court. We met with the judge and the county commissioners to follow up on our discussion of their participation in our tax increment reinvestment zone. We had a very productive meeting with them this morning. They did tell us that in July they will let us know whether they will participate in the TERS. But from the discussion, and I think we can all agree, they and based on the responses that we gave them, there were a number of questions they asked this morning. We're hopeful that they will be participating in our TERS. And immediately following that meeting this morning, I've reached out to DD6 and let them know that we had the meeting with the commissioners, and they will be following up with the city as well on whether or not they will be participating.
Thank you, sir.
No comment.
Just wanted to thank you guys. Thanks to the city manager and assistant city managers and others that are in my corner to have the opportunity to lead in this role. I'm extremely excited to serve the community and ready to get to work.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to welcome Tracy, congratulate Freddie, who is our new CVB director, and welcome Demi to the table with Cheryl and I. And I also want to thank Tim Oknichek and his staff for the hurricane preparedness that we had this morning. You guys did a great job. So just want to thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder of the joint meeting tomorrow night at the Event Center at 700 Crockett at 6 p.m. At 6 p.m. So everybody to be there. Likewise, I'd like to welcome again Tracy, Demi in their positions. And who am I missing? Freddie. And we are also looking at some things with our planning department with economic development. So we hope to have an exciting announcement this week on that too. And some things we're doing with economic development in-house with our department. So that's great. I too commend the weekend. It was a great weekend. We went by the fly-in at the airport. They really enjoyed that. Got to meet some really good people and interact with good people and see some interesting airplanes, et cetera, out there, Taylor. And then went to 409 Day. Was a great event. We enjoyed it out there. So again, you're right. There's plenty to do. There was plenty to do in Beaumont this weekend. And then Sunday was the Crawfish Festival. So there was a lot to do. Just a good note, we talk about grants as we were going over our CIP and starting to put it together for this year. Out of the identified projects in the CIP, 25% of them are grant funded. We're talking about, what was it total? 200 million in projects, 419 million. So 1/4 of those projects we've identified grant funding for, and we're continuing to look for grant funding for projects, and that doesn't count all the other side things. These are infrastructure projects. So just thought I'd share that with council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Durio, I believe you had something else.
Sorry about that, Mayor. Miss Tony Pradice, she lives in my ward, and her neighbors are very happy with a City of Beaumont employee. He works for sanitation, and he picks up their trash, and they want to be here, and they wrote him a certificate, and I told him I would read it. And it says, Certificate of Special Recognition. This certifies that George Brown is awarded this certificate of special recognition for your outstanding service, tireless effort. This is to acknowledge our appreciation and gratitude. Signed, the Pear Orchard Sarah Street community. So that's a great thing. We have some hard working, but I'm glad that people recognize and really appreciate their employees, our city's employees. So.
All right, now Councilman Turner.
I'm so sorry.
We're going to just start over.
Mr. Raymond Ford, man, I just want to really thank you. The partnership with the City of Beaumont, with the swim team, you're very appreciated. Thank you for the hard work, dedication, and consistency. I think this is something very good for our city, and we flood often, so I think these kids need to learn as much as they can about being in the water.
Wow. But that's true. Well, I want to thank our city manager and staff, and certainly excited for the promotions is also the new hire and the exciting things that are happening and the presentation today, I think, and the education that we continue to share with the residents on why things happen like they do when sometimes they feel like there's not a process when in fact you've gone to great extent, and I know that the city continues to try to build processes that are fair and equitable across the city. And I'm grateful for that. And our city Facebook page as well as our web page is incredible. And we're talking about all this. And for people that sometimes say, man, I hate to miss that, you really don't have to miss any of it. And because it is posted, and the graphics always are very engaging too. So I'm grateful for that. The cleanup day that is this Saturday that was posted, I'm bringing that up. I'm participating in that. I'm excited about that. I'm also throwing out the first pitch at the Lamar game that evening. So if I have trouble with distance, I'm sure it's because I have been, getting a lot of garbage. So I do want to lay that groundwork right now. Just to be clear, and excited about the joint meeting with BISD for tomorrow, and certainly thank June for the TERS presentation at Commissioner's Court. I think it was well received, and I'm excited that the different entities are working well together, and they expressed their excitement too that the city is taking such steps, and decisions hadn't been made yet, but it certainly appears to be that we're all working in the same direction. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.